Please be seated. Good morning. Good morning, Dean Almeida, State Superintendent of Education Kang, Vice Dean Quinn, Vice President, distinguished guests, members of the faculty, members of the graduating class, and ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2019 Commencement exercises for the Executive Masters in Leadership Program for DC Public School Leaders. I'm George Liebensfeld, Director of Academic Affairs at the McDonough School of Business. Today we assemble to honor candidates for the degree of Executive Masters in Leadership. We will begin our ceremony with an invocation delivered by Reverend Raymond Kemp, Senior Research Fellow at Georgetown University. Following the invocation, Professor Douglas McCabe will read the university charter. Please stand for the invocation.
Loving God, we call you all by all kinds of names, signs of our love, for the great wonder in our depths, the great wonder in our creation, the great wonder in the beyond. We want to enter into Thanksgiving this day for a year of learning, of coming to know one another and ourselves more deeply, daring to touch our gifts at levels more profound than we could have imagined a year ago. A careful soul brought us together, knowing we would make quite a mix. Early on, we called ourselves to become interrupters of the status quo, interrupters of complacency. We pledged ourselves to grow, and we have been enriched so much, and we thank all those who've made this possible. A blessing, please, on one another, a blessing on our home base, our schools, our offices, a blessing on our family homes. Film clip after film clip, sage advice upon words of wisdom. We come again to know in Bobby Kennedy's words that every time we stand up for an idea or act to improve the lot of others or strike out against injustice, we send forth a ripple of hope. And crossing each other from centers of energy and daring, these ripples build a current that can sweep down mighty walls of oppression and resistance. This day gathered these ripples of ours into a mighty current for the good of our students, our teams of educators that we lead, and let this city cry glory in the great promise of what we are to do here and now, and to grow a generation to bring us into a quick tomorrow that sees the fruits of our labor. Can I get an amen? Can I get a louder amen? Amen. Amen.
Please be seated. In 1815, Georgetown's president, Reverend John Grassi of the Society of Jesus, asked our first student, then Congressman William Gaston, for whom this hall is named, to present a petition for a federal charter. The bill passed the House and the Senate in February 1815 and was signed by the President on the same day the Senate ratified the Treaty of Peace ending the War of 1812. Accordingly, it is our custom to initiate academic ceremonies with the reading of that charter. It reads as follows, and I quote, "An act concerning the College of Georgetown in the District of Columbia, being enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that it shall and may be lawful for such persons as now are or from time to time may be, the president and directors of the College of Georgetown within the District of Columbia to admit any of the students belonging to said college or other persons meriting academical honors to any degree in the faculties, arts, sciences, and liberal professions, to which persons are usually admitted in other colleges or universities of the United States, and to issue in an appropriate form the diplomas or certificates which may be requisite to testify to the admission of such degree. Signed, Langdon Chevis, Speaker of the House of Representatives. John Gayard, President Pro Tempore of the Senate. Approved, March 1st, 1815, James Madison.
This morning, we are indeed privileged to have with us the State Superintendent of Education, Han-Sul Kang. Han-Sul Kang has led the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, the OSSE, the District of Columbia State Education Agency, since 2015. Under Kang's leadership, the District of Columbia has continued to make major strides in student achievement outcomes, and the OSSE has taken important steps to sustain, accelerate, and deepen this progress across DC. OSSE has made multi-million-dollar investments in and launched significant new supports for early childhood education that have led to improved quality and expanded access for children and families across the district. Kang spearheaded work to develop DC's Every Student Succeeds Act plan and new DC school report card. Kang also launched a Start of School campaign to transform the way local education agencies and schools experience the start of the school year and better equip them with information and resources to get off to a great start with their students. Kang previously served as Chief of Staff for the Tennessee Department of Education from 2011 to 2015, as the state implemented major policies and programs under Race to the Top and made significant gains in student achievement outcomes. Before that, Kang worked as a managing director of program in Teach for America's DC regional office, managing a team of instructional coaches supporting teachers across DCPS and DC public charter schools. She started her career as a high school social studies teacher in rural New Mexico. Kang holds a bachelor's degree in international politics from Georgetown University and a JD from Harvard Law School, and was a Jack Kent Cooke Foundation graduate scholar.
Good morning, everyone. I'm deeply honored to be here with you today to celebrate the 2019 cohort of the McDonough School of Business Executive Masters in Leadership program, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak on behalf of the Office of the State Superintendent of Education to such an incredible group of LEA and school leaders. I'm also thrilled to return to Georgetown University, my alma mater, and to join you here in Gaston Hall, where as an undergraduate, I had a chance to see many inspiring speakers right here on this stage. But today, I am inspired by each of you. Whether you work in DCPS or DC public charter schools, serve as principals, or lead important projects in schools and central offices, you've clearly demonstrated your commitment to continuing to grow in your own leadership and to work together to improve the quality of education in the District of Columbia so that all of our students, regardless of zip code, background, or school sector, can learn and thrive. Earlier this school year, I had the chance to share some exciting news about the progress that we are continuing to make across DC. The gains we have made on the National Assessment of Educational Progress over more than a decade are truly remarkable. DC was one of the few bright spots in the country in the 2019 results and remains the fastest improving state and urban school system in the nation. The improvements we are making in student learning are unprecedented in both scale and sustainability over time, and we are truly showing the nation what is possible. The progress we have made in DC is because of the collective commitment that all of us together have made as a community to prioritizing education, and the hard work of students, families, and educators. And they are because of the incredible dedication, the bold vision, and the day-to-day work of implementation by school leaders, including all of you. School leaders have the special challenge and opportunity of sitting at the nexus of policy and practice, of instructional leadership and building management, of managing teams and guiding culture. It's an enormous responsibility, and I'm so grateful to all of you for taking it on and taking it on so well. Each of you, in your varied roles, has an enormous opportunity to shape the interactions that our students experience in schools every day. And the smallest of those interactions can make a lasting difference, especially for our students who are the most vulnerable. And I've seen this firsthand. My own journey to this lovely campus, to Georgetown University, was not as smooth as that of some of my peers and as I had once hoped that it might be. Having decided at all of 12 years old that I was destined for a career in international politics, by high school, Georgetown School of Foreign Service was my dream school. I grew up in a family without a lot of money, but my parents had always told me that my job was to study hard and get good grades so that I could get into a good college and that they would take care of everything else. But one day when I was a junior in high school, my parents had to sit me down after school to tell me what they had always told me, was no longer true. That the reality was that I was undocumented. And this was why they had not been able to take me to get my learner's permit, why I could not get a summer job, and because I could not qualify for federal financial aid, why they did not know if I would be able to go to college at all. This was the start of a really hard time in my life, when so much of what I had known and believed in was turned upside down. I went from thinking that everything was possible and within my reach to not knowing if I would be able to stay in the only country that I had ever known. In the end, I was incredibly lucky. I was able to start college at a small liberal arts school that offered a private financial aid package. And later, thanks to the work of some attorneys who took on our immigration case pro bono, I became a permanent resident and was able to transfer to Georgetown for my junior year. But it wasn't easy to transfer schools as a junior. I had no room for mistakes in order to be able to graduate on time, in which classes I would take or how I would do in them. I had an advisor who I know meant well, I absolutely do, but the advisor suggested to me that I should not aim for an honors thesis because transfer students often struggle to meet the high GPA requirement that went along with it. And while I knew his advice was a safer route, I found it hard to shake the seed of doubt, self-doubt, that his well-intentioned questioning of what I could do had planted. By my senior year, though, I had found a small community here on this campus. I loved my classes, and I was intensely grateful for the educational opportunities that I had found. I had been lucky enough to attend public schools that had prepared me for this amazing place, even as someone who was not born in this country and who grew up in a family without much money. And I felt deeply how unfair it was that that should be a matter of luck. And so I put my interest in international law on what I thought was a temporary pause and applied to Teach for America. After I was accepted as a New Mexico Corps member, though, I was deeply torn about whether I could go forward. My parents, who had worked so hard and sacrificed so much for me, were very concerned about my moving thousands of miles away from any friends or family. They wanted me to find a stable job closer to home and give up any do-gooder notions. And I didn't know if I actually had it in me to do something that seemed so hard, especially in the face of their questions and concerns. That semester, I was taking a class with Dan Porterfield, who at the time was a professor of English and an administrator here, and who had made it somewhat of a personal mission to reach out to first-generation college students and students from low-income backgrounds, who might otherwise struggle to find a home here at Georgetown. I didn't know Dan very well at this point, but somehow he had made me feel that he was someone I could turn to as I tried to make this hard decision about my future. I went to Dan after class one day and briefly explained my predicament. He said he would be happy to talk to me, but he was leaving town the next day. Could we meet the next week? I told him I completely understood and not to worry about it because the deadline was just a few days away. He would hear none of it and said I should come by his office that afternoon and that we would figure something out. When I got there, I think it was in this very building, the small waiting area outside his office was absolutely packed. It turned out that he was double and triple booked all afternoon, and there were people patiently waiting on every available inch of space to talk to him. I almost turned around and left, but his assistant had said he would absolutely want me to wait. When it was finally my turn to enter, I started rushing through the 2-minute spiel that I had plenty of time to rehearse while waiting, feeling so badly about taking up any of this busy and important person's time. But Dan immediately held up his hand and said I should slow down, that this was a big decision and we should take our time to talk through it. He made me start from the beginning. And as we talked, he kindly and patiently helped me to see that I could love and respect my parents and still find my own path, that it made sense to be nervous, to be taking on this enormous challenge of teaching, but that he believed in me, and in doing so, he helped me start to believe in myself. That conversation in Dan's office as a moment of connection and belief was a turning point for me. It was the start of what ultimately led me to devoting my life and my career to public education and working on behalf of students and families, especially those who have been historically underserved. Each of you has the opportunity to create the environment for your students that I got to experience on that afternoon, to shape schools and classrooms where our students not only learn ambitious content and skills, but also feel seen and cared for and believed in by the adults around them, where they know what it is to struggle with challenging coursework and have someone they can turn to when they are unsure or full of self-doubt, someone who will take the time and create the space to help them find the way through, where you as leaders manage what could otherwise seem like chaos in a way that not only allows for but encourages these human connections. We cannot take away every obstacle in our students' paths, but in truly building meaningful relationships where we show our belief in them, we can start to help them see and believe in the resilience and strength in themselves that they will need to overcome these obstacles. I know that this is no small thing that I am asking, that you already do so much every single day, but I'm making the ask because I believe that it is what our students need and deserve, and because I believe in each of you. So I hope you will take today to celebrate with one another and with your family and friends who are all here the amazing accomplishment of earning this Executive Master's in Leadership. And as you head back to your schools and your offices on Monday, I'm asking that you think about how to even more thoughtfully exercise the awesome responsibility that you have as school leaders to shape the lives of our young people, by being that supportive and caring adult in their lives who believes in them and ensuring that they are surrounded by other adults doing the same. I congratulate you on this incredible milestone, and I'm so grateful to you for the work that you do every day on behalf of DC students and families. Together, I firmly believe that we will continue to show the nation what is possible and ensure that all students in DC are able to succeed in school and in life. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Kang, for those moving and inspiring remarks. As you know and appreciate, part of the strength of any degree program is the academic content. It is now my pleasure to introduce the program's academic director, who is responsible for the curriculum and other content, Professor Robert Bies. Dr. Bies will now present a few personal reflections about the class and the experiences shared during the last 12 months.
We come here today to celebrate you and your accomplishments, from the oh so many papers to the cross-sector innovation projects that you worked on in collaboration with Deputy Mayor for Education Paul Kine. Having completed this intense and intensive program, it probably makes you more appreciative of Nelson Mandela's observation: it always seems impossible until it's done. Or maybe you're feeling right now, what you're feeling right now is best captured in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last. But today is also a day of gratitude, and we are so grateful to two foundations, the Walton Family Foundation and the A. James and Alice B. Clark Foundation, for their generosity in funding this program, because we would not be having this program or this graduation without their support. But we are also grateful to the family, friends, and coworkers who supported you along this journey this year, many of whom are with you here today. So let me begin my comments with these words. You have the power, use it. Your EML journey began at Airlie last January, a conference center at which Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had been a guest on more than one occasion, and the location at which he began writing the I Have a Dream speech and organizing the Poor People's Campaign. You walked the same hallways as Dr. King, dreaming about a better future for your students and organizing and mobilizing on their behalf. At Airlie, you crafted a mission statement for the cohort, which you titled Sumat Provocation, that's my Latin, Disrupt to Empower. In that statement, you committed to this mission. We are a diverse community bringing together our unique gifts to awaken ourselves and others to action, driven by the shared spirit of justice and love. We are committed to walking the bridge together in order to unleash the power and potential of our communities. And you've stayed true to that mission throughout the year as you challenged each other and you are challenging a variety of institutions. Do right by your students and their families. In doing this work and doing it together, you are changing the landscape of urban public school education in Washington, D.C. Your focus all year has not been on what sector you are from, but how can you best serve all public school students, regardless of race, regardless of age, regardless of social class, and regardless of where your students come from or the language they speak. Across this year, through all these actions, and so many others, you are living out the powerful truth of Cornell West. You can't lead the people if you don't love the people. You can't save the people if you don't serve the people. You have the power. Use it. As you continue to work to change the life trajectories of students, whether they be 3 years old or 23 years old, you will need to use your power to dream big, stand up and stand together, and keep the faith and keep moving. Dream big. You've heard me say so many times throughout this year, dream and dream big. But in dreaming big, I want you to heed the wisdom of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who served as the 24th president of Liberia and was the first elected female head of state in Africa, and who also was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And she said these words, "If your dreams do not scare you, they're not big enough. The size of your dreams must always exceed your current capacity to achieve them." But many people will tell you, and probably have told you, don't dream big, as you'll ultimately be disappointed. But to those doubters and naysayers, remind them of the wisdom of Steve Jobs. The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Stand up and stand together. Each of you has a voice for leadership. I saw that the first time I met you, whether it was 30 minutes or 3 minutes or 1 minute. But across this year, I've heard each of your voices grow deeper and richer as you become empowered leaders. You speak with confidence, you speak with passion, and you speak the truth in a world that is often indifferent, if not silent, to the needs and challenges that face your students and their families. So you must stand up and you must speak loud, remembering the wisdom of another Nobel Peace Prize winner, Malala. When the world is silent, even one voice becomes powerful. But you cannot do it alone, and you will not do it alone. And you are not alone. There are 40 voices from the cohorts of the past 2 years, and 20 voices from the next cohort, and many of them are here today. You add the 70 graduates from the previous version of this program, and some of those are here today. And there are 150 voices strong that are a powerful force for change, innovation, and social justice. As Gandhi reminds us, a small body of determined spirits fired by an unquenchable faith in their mission can alter the course of history. Keep the faith and keep moving. To do the work you've been called to in service of your students and their families, you must keep the faith. Si se puede. Yes, it is possible. Hope. Those words of Dolores Huerta, made famous by Cesar Chavez, became a rallying cry for a movement. Always keep them close to your heart. But being hopeful needs to be grounded in a faith, a belief in a better, more just world. As Mary McLeod Bethune reminds us, without faith, nothing is possible. With it, nothing is impossible. But in answering the call of leadership, you will stumble. You will fall, but get back up, dust yourself off, and keep moving. Remember the wisdom of Dr. King, words which are engraved on the paperweight designed by my wife Susan, which I gave you at the closing residency. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Samantha, DJ, Big Mitch, Sean, Amy, Terry, Rock, Paige, Misha, Kai, Katia, Dwayne, Jerry, and Christian. Josh, Lorraine, Pankaj, Corey, Emily, Akosia, and Stephanie. You have the power. Use it. Remember that your greatness lies ahead of you and within you. May the force be with you always. Thank you. It is now my privilege and honor to introduce two members of the cohort, the class, who were chosen by their peers to make some remarks. So I'd like Paige Hoffman and Misha Inman to come on up. The stage is yours.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paige Hoffman, and I lead the School Improvement Division at DC Public Schools.
My name is Misha Inman, and I'm honored to serve as the head of school at the Seed Public Charter School of Washington, D.C.
Yay. We'd like to start by first saying thank you to everyone who has supported us over the past year to get here. To get to Gaston Hall on December 14th at 11 a.m. We were all on time. Cohort 3, we did it! Woo! When Misha and I first met to discuss our remarks, we knew that we wanted to do it together, to symbolically show the partnership that has really developed across both sectors over this past year. And we were understandably very nervous. Probably would have been even more nervous had we known we would be following the amazing Professor Bees, but that's for another story. And we wondered, how will we talk about the stories of professional growth, of high-powered negotiations, and deep case studies that we've covered this year, all in 1,000 words or less? So I did what I normally do when I face something that I don't know how to move forward with. I grabbed my Post-its, I went to YouTube and Google, and I watched a lot of commencement addresses, like a lot. It's all that shows up now whenever I click on YouTube. But something stood out to me when I was watching those. They all followed something like a very similar vein, a thread. Somebody stands at an official-looking podium like this, and they say, "You have enjoyed a sheltered experience in these esteemed halls. You will now go out into the world and try to make your mark. You will figure out that failure is inevitable. You will face hardship, but if you find your passion, you'll get through it." But here's the thing that I know deeply from this past year and that I think everyone in this room knows. This room full of leaders, this cohort in the first 2 rows right here, are folks who have already made their mark. They are folks who have found a passion in serving young people and are committed to serving communities in this district. We have experienced failure. We face disappointment and setbacks, but every single day we get up and we go forward because we believe that nothing less is what our students and families deserve. We feel called to more. We feel the call of the Magus. One of the first pieces of education, of sage wisdom that we got during the opening residency came from Professor Fontana, who was quoting Paulo Freire, who stated, and once again, this is 1,000 words or less, so I'm going to abbreviate this, but there is no such thing as a neutral education process. Education either functions as an instrument which brings about conformity, or it becomes the practice of freedom. And he goes on to define freedom as the means by which men and women deal critically and creatively with reality and discover how to participate in the transformation of their world. We all entered this program and this work because we believe education is the practice of freedom, that the work we do every day in schools or central offices across the district does transform the world, and that if we focus on developing ourselves as leaders, we will have the ability to amplify and empower others. So this year, we have been on a journey of heroic leadership. We've developed our self-awareness. We've expanded our horizons mentally and emotionally. Unfortunately, we have also expanded physically. Thank you, Fried Chicken Fridays in the faculty club. We've also learned how to communicate more deeply with those around us, how to engage and touch our communities. And we've reflected in those tons and tons of papers or over walks in Airlie or in Hariri. And our professors challenged us with some pretty big questions in those reflections. What is the purpose of education? What are your gifts and passions? How are you being called into life to run a mission-driven organization? Seriously, they asked us that the very first weekend. Please turn to your neighbor and ask them, how are your passions letting you drive a mission-driven organization? Like, how do you answer that? And so how would we answer that? How would we come together and form an identity? For those familiar with Professor Bees, you will not be surprised to learn that the answer for our cohort came in a movie. It came in actually our very first movie that we watched together, which was the historical drama Selma, about the civil rights marches from Selma to Montgomery. And inspired by those heroic leaders, cohort, get ready for this, we found our cohort's motto: disrupt to empower. Thank you, guys.
To be a great heroic leader, as Paige mentioned, you must know thyself. So by mid-program residency, the foundation of great, inspirational, powerful moral leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela had been laid. It was then time to take a hard look at the greatness that lives within each of us. So cue self-assessments. LPI 360, AJIL, PQ, EQ, VIA. We have learned that we are a group of people-pleasing, burned out, hyper-competitive, impulsive perfectionists who need validation, love, time for reflection, time for meditation, and time for self, family, and friends. We realize that the notion of focusing on self to be a great leader is not selfish at all, but necessary. Necessary to maintain energy and health, to put out daily fires, stay the course, and make the best decisions in the interest of our scholars, our staff, and the district. Necessary to be strategic leaders who model the way and inspire others to fulfill the vision of an institution, because leaders are only as good as those around them. Necessary to transform a toxic culture in our schools and organizations through courageous conversations, making difficult decisions again, and celebrating both small and big wins. Necessary to know how to leverage our power and influence in the spirit of equity and to combat poverty. Necessary to understand our saboteurs that get in the way of doing all of the above. And by the middle of this transformational journey, a great awakening happened. There was a revelation within each of us that the power and influence to change, we had it. We could do this. The revelation provided the necessary fuel of fervor and passion to complete our cross-sector innovation projects. Projects that will forever change the educational landscape in the district and solve for the barriers that stand in the way of maximizing resources to best serve scholars and their families. So sage wisdom, in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I'm not interested in power for power's sake, but I am interested in power that is moral, that is right, and that is good. Disrupt to empower.
And so by the time fall rolled around, like educators across the country, we wondered, would the resilience and renewal from the summer, all of which were available at the Bolger Center's Pony Express Inn for some green drink tickets, last us into the school year? Nevertheless, with that resilience and renewal, we were prepared to tackle strategic challenges, to reflect on our current school communities and cultures, to develop personal leadership plans that would carry us forward after graduation today. And at this time, we were also in a place where the words of Dr. Martin Luther King were never more salient. Stay awake. Stay awake, not just while writing those final papers or planning back to school PD, but to stay awake in our lives and how we show up for those around us. Stay awake in the midst of this revolution taking place in our city. And more than that, be present. Be thoughtful about how you create spaces for those that you work with, that you care for, to also stay awake, to show up and have their voices heard. To recognize the power within each and every one of us, to realize that we are not passive in this education system, but that we are drivers of culture and change. that we have the power to be leaders and advocates for change. And after a year of learning, growing, reflecting, we have the skills to be those heroic leaders that we spent this year learning about, to be the people MLK spoke about in his last service at the National Cathedral when he prayed, God, grant that we will be participants in this newness and this magnificent development. If we will but do it, we will bring about a new day of justice and brotherhood and peace. Disrupt to empower. Almost there, guys.
We now end the program ready to walk the bridge that Dr. Bees referenced we developed and talked about during our mission statement creation. Ready to walk the bridge with linked arms to fight injustice together. We have been welded together through laughs, through tears, and shared experiences. We have pushed each other to make really difficult decisions about our professional trajectories, to course correct, and to ensure we are sitting in the right leadership seats. What an incredible journey we have traveled together, and we are grateful to have traveled it with all of you. Before we end our remarks, it's only fitting that we express our gratitude to those who made this day possible. Thank you to Georgetown University for this one-of-a-kind leadership program for district public school leaders. Thank you to all of the Georgetown staff who took care of us during our many, many nourishment breaks. They didn't help our waistline, but they did help us stay engaged in the work. And thank you to the Walton family and Clark Foundations. We are forever indebted to your generosity. We vow to make good on the return on your investment through our leadership and advocacy that will impact generations to come. Thank you to Alexis for being our logistical anchor throughout our program. You have been an absolute joy. Thank you to our leadership teams for holding down the work in our buildings while we were in class. Thank you to our families and friends, spouses and partners, as well as our children. We recognize that you sacrificed family time and took on additional responsibilities, and we appreciate you. We also apologize for any attitudes or negative behaviors you experienced while we waded our way through a sea of books, we have new libraries, and assignments. Forgive and forget, please and thank you. And I promise we were also trying to be better leaders for all of you. Thank you to all of our professors. You are each and collectively extraordinarily brilliant. We will take your teachings with us as we enter this next phase of leadership. And Professor Bees. There are no words that can express our gratitude for your vision to create this most beautiful, spiritual leadership journey. Let us know, though, if you begin a doctorate program, and we'll be there, just keeping it 1,000. Your ability to weave a good video clip through your teachings from your top 50 movie lists, make it relevant and masterful too, it's pretty incredible. And by pushing leaders to face the fear of disruption and change with moral courage and conviction, you are creating ripples that will go far and wide. During our time together, you have presented many, many great leaders to us. But you must know that you too are a great leader who is an inspiration to all of us. And I have to say this because we know from his emails, okay, you'll get it. Continue to be good and do good, sir. And we will do the same. Lastly, to our cohort mates, we thank you for just being you. As the best cohort in EML history, don't get it twisted, come on. What we have come to embrace is that whether we work for traditional, or charter sector, together, we all serve the same children. And finally, as is par for the course, remember this final sage wisdom from the Adventures of Johnny Bunko, Lessons for Thriving as a Leader. There is no plan. Think strengths, not weaknesses. It's not about you. Persistence trumps talent. Make excellent mistakes. Leave an imprint and stay hungry. Congratulations, class of 2019, cohort 3. Disrupt to
Empower.
Thank you.
So on behalf of our class, it is now our great pleasure to present the Outstanding Faculty Award.
The recipient of this award was selected by our cohort in a class vote.
We promise not to make this like the Emmys.
But we might a little bit. You ready?
Yeah, let's go. Like we practiced.
And this year's Outstanding Faculty Award goes to...
It's a tie! Professors McCabe and O'Day, please come forward.
Thank you. It is now my pleasure to introduce, for reflections, two distinguished individuals representing our unique partnership with the DC Public Schools and DC Public Charter School Board. First, we will hear from DC Public Schools Instructional Superintendent Eric Bethel. Then we will hear from President of Legal Services Corporation and member of the DC Public Charter School Board, James J. Sandman.
Thank you. I am filled with tremendous gratitude and honor to be with you at your commencement and to be the first DC EML alum to officially welcome you across the threshold and into a legacy of over 150 other district leaders who, just like you, have been EML trained and are extremely well prepared and positioned to carry out what is expected of us. I'll get more into those expectations shortly, but for now, I'd like to share a short story with you about an exchange I had just the other day with a beloved member of our EML alumni community, Harry Hughes from Cohort 1, as he likes to call it, the Trailblazer Cohort, numero uno. Graduates, this story will sort of serve as an orientation into the EML alumni community. In true alignment with the part of our human nature that yearns to be number one, you know, that competitive spirit that we all have inside that drives us to seek validation, to be identified amongst the best, lifted in high regard, you know, top of the order. Well, graduates, and it's very clear you already have this sense, it is very present in our alumni community, and was the motivation behind my phone call to Harry Hughes just the other day. My intentions for the call were simple. I was calling to brag and to add a bullet point to my cohort's resume and rightful claim to be the best of all 6 EML cohorts. I disguised my intentions with the cordial greeting. Hey, Harry, what's up, man? How are things going down in Richmond? Harry, things are great, Eric. I'm really leading with my purpose. My why's out in front, and I'm changing outcomes for students. I impatiently listened to his offerings, but truly I wanted to get to my intent. I respond, yeah, Harry, that's great. Now listen, I wanted you to know, Harry, that I've been invited to speak at the upcoming Georgetown graduation this Saturday. They want me to represent all of the cohorts from the past. Now, side note, we all know that good competitive trash talk, there's an art to it, and you embellish and you exaggerate just a bit. I really did not get a personal call or invitation, but I was invited to speak here. So there on the phone was dead silence, and I knew why. I knew what he was experiencing because I manufactured it. He knew that he should say something congratulatory and something affirming, but that was competing with strong feelings of envy and loss. So he literally says, it's interesting that they would have asked someone from your cohort. And that reply opened the floodgate for competitive banter. Now, what's most important about that story, and even more present in our alumni community than the competitive talk, was that we immediately pivoted into reflecting on the common experiences that bind us all, no matter the cohort. We started talking about how Dr. Turner taught us to listen well in order to talk, and how Dr. Bees would stamp that often by saying listening is the most important leadership skill, and how Harry and I both found that to be true. We further reflected on the ways that our perspectives were pushed and pulled and altered from balcony to dance floor and every which way through Dr. O'Day's consultancy protocols. We laughed and laughed thinking about how poorly we performed in Dr. McCabe's high-powered negotiation simulations, and just how much we appreciate his style and how those failures have helped us in reality. Of course, no alumni conversation begins or ends without the mention of the masterful integration of cinema into leadership by Dr. Bees. The quotes between Harry and I flew back and forth like a tennis rally. I could stand here going on and on, citing the great many learnings that we've all experienced. But beyond all the knowledge and skills acquired through the common learning curriculum, what binds us most tightly and gives us legacy is the calling that we've all heard from those moments of deep, deep personal reflection that this program so intentionally provides. We've all peered deeply into our souls, discovering who we are in this space and time, what we believe, and what we commit to making true. We found our authentic leadership voice and purpose. We've pledged to ourselves and each other to lead for justice, morality, equity, and to disrupt, tear down, and replace the barriers to those values. And so, to go back to our legacy, to who we are as one large cohort, there is an expectation of us. We are expected to answer the call in leadership. We are expected to stand up, and as Dr. Bees has taught us many times, not alone, but together. And we will never stand alone because we are one community, one legacy of leaders poised for transformation. EML Cohort 6, Cohort 3, congratulations and welcome. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jim Sandman. I've got 6 minutes. I can make my point in 4 words. Good people finish first. Personal character, integrity, kindness, generosity, and service to others are hallmarks of great leadership. Whoever says nice guys finish last is a cynic, a loser, and wrong. Lest you think that I'm just spouting bogus commencement speaker fluff, my case is based on hard facts. A growing body of research supports the conclusion that givers, people who are generous, compassionate, and helpful, make strong leaders and are more likely to be successful than people who are not. One of the preeminent scholars in this field is Adam Grant, a professor of management at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School. Grant's research shows, as he puts it, that across many industries, from banking to manufacturing to retail, givers are most likely to earn promotions and ascend to leadership positions. As Grant has written, there is reason to believe that in the long run, the greatest success and the richest meaning will come to those who, instead of cutting others down, pursue their personal ambitions in ways that lift others up. Professor Grant is himself proof of what his research has found. He goes to extraordinary lengths to help others. He writes about 100 letters of recommendation each year. Students line up outside his office door for advice, which he dispenses freely for hours on end. He helps academics at other institutions, strangers, with their research, and he is enormously successful. He's 38. The University of Pennsylvania granted him tenure when he was in his 20s. For the last 7 years, he has been rated the best professor at the Wharton School. He has published 3 New York Times best-selling books, each of which has sold more than 1 million copies. When Superintendent Kang described Professor Porterfield earlier, it sounded like Professor Grant, a person who gives of himself, a person who changes lives, a leader who makes other leaders. I have been blessed to know a number of great leaders whose personal character explains their success. The most important example in my professional life is the judge for whom I worked as a law clerk the year after I graduated from law school, the late Max Rosen of the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. Judge Rosen was my first mentor and role model as a lawyer. A distinguished fellow jurist described him as one of the most magnificent judges in the history of our nation. Another called him a man of almost divine grace. I believe that Judge Rosen's formidable professional achievements were directly connected to his personal character. He was kind, generous, and gentle. I was struck by the goodness of the man the day I met him for my job interview. He took me out to lunch that day. I thought that was just remarkable, a federal court of appeals judge taking a law student out to lunch. As we walked to the restaurant, I noticed 2 things about this person I had just met. First, he seemed to know every single person we passed, and not just the white guys in business suits. And second, I noticed how the people we met spoke to Judge Rosen and how he spoke to them. There was great respect, almost reverence, in the way people addressed him, and he reciprocated their respect. For every person we passed, no matter what their station in life, he stopped, he gave of his time and attention, he engaged them, he said something kind, he made them feel important. I saw that quality of treating every person with whom he dealt with respect, everyone. Throughout the year, I worked for Judge Rosen, and I felt it in the way he treated me. I was an inexperienced, introverted, and insecure 25-year-old in my first real job. He treated me as a valued professional colleague, and he made me feel like $1 million. Judge Rosen lived a life of service, both on and off the bench. He gave back to his community. He was involved in a host of civic, charitable, and religious activities, and virtually every day, at lunch or in the evening, he spent some time assisting a nonprofit organization. He was proof of the complete compatibility of kindness and generosity on the one hand, and leadership and professional accomplishment on the other. Personal character may be more important to leadership in education than in any other field. Your business is inspiring others. The people you manage, the people you need to help you accomplish your goals, the students whose lives you hope to influence will be most likely to follow, to be motivated by, and to remember the leader who is honest, selfless, generous, kind, empathetic, forgiving, and committed to the service of others. Great leadership is moral leadership. Good people finish first. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Bethel and DC Public Charters Board Member Sandman, for sharing your thoughts with us today. Before we begin the presentation of the candidates for degrees, I would like to recognize the contributions made by the faculty and staff who are my diligent partners here at the McDonough School of Business. As students, each one of you has studied with, been challenged by, and sought counsel from many of our full and part-time faculty members and staff. I therefore ask you, as graduates, to join me in expressing appreciation to your teachers and administrators. This is supposed to mean rise. I'm not conducting the orchestra. We will now call forward our 2019 candidates for the degree of Executive Masters in Leadership. Please hold your applause until the end when all candidates have returned to their seats. Will Dean Almeida and Professors Beese and McCabe please move forward? As Director of Academic Affairs for Executive Education at the McDonough School of Business, I am proud to call forth the following Executive Masters in Leadership candidates. Samantha Bright. Darrell W. Brooks II. Mitchell V. Brunson. Sean Patrick Companucci. Amy Witherspoon Drake. Terry M. Fuller. William Darrell Haith. Paige Gaines Hoffman. Emily Huber Stowitzer. LaShawn Carmisha Inman. Kailani Ivory Akpan. Katia Jones. Katia Melissa Jones. Dwayne Anthony Little. Gerardo A. Luna. Joshua Thomas Pecos. Lorraine Ramos. Pankos Rayamazi. Corey Ricketts. Akoshia Fatima Yoba. Stephanie Renee Young.
Dean Almeida, on behalf of the faculty of Robert Emmett McDonough School of Business, as the Senior Associate Dean of Executive Degree Programs, I have the honor to present to you the aforementioned candidates for the degree of Executive Masters in Leadership. When these candidates have been duly examined and recommended by the faculty and approved by the Board of Directors, I ask that you bestow on these students the degrees in course. Will the candidates rise, please?
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Congress of the United States and by the President and Board of Directors of Georgetown University, I officially confer upon the aforementioned candidates the degree of Executive Masters in Leadership. Congratulations. We've had so many great speeches. I shudder I'm never nervous, but after all those great speeches, I'm a little nervous about talking to you at all. But I do want to say one thing. You claimed you were the best cohort in 6 years, right? And I think there was some competition over there. But, before we hand out the degrees, we always say, please hold your applause until all the candidates get their degrees, and no one ever listens. So I'm not sure about you, but this is the best audience we've had in history of Georgetown. And I know they're a reflection of all of you. But, so I just want to say a few things. I've got a long speech, but I don't think the moment calls for that. But if you think about this, here we are today, these are kind of silly robes and silly hats and, beautiful buildings, almost like a fairy tale, right? Or Harry Potter. But this is no fairy tale. This is a real celebration. And it's a celebration of all of you. We've just heard all that you had to be put through, all the hard work, all the days and the nights. And I know I've learned one thing from my nearly 25 years at Georgetown. We don't let you off easy. So I think you should be really, really proud. And just take a moment to congratulate yourselves. You really deserve it. And, a lot goes into both creating and running a program like this. But I cast my mind back to 6 years ago. It was, of course, our President Jack DeGioia, of course, the then Chancellor Kaya Henderson, but from the very beginning, it was about your director, Bob Beese, who believed we could do something that no one else had ever done, that we could bring public schools and charter schools together and ignore the big national debate about which is better and why. And because of him and because of all of you, we've shown that if we focus on the students, we can do really great things together. So congratulations to all of you, but of course to Dr. Beese and all the faculty and administrators who make this happen. And nothing is done without partnership. In fact, one of the things I value most about Georgetown is partnerships and community and collegiality and belonging. And we have had great partners, the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Education, DC Public Schools, DC Public Charter Schools, the Walton Family Foundation, the Clark Foundation, and the DC Public Education Fund. Thank you all so much. We are really grateful for everything you do, for partnering with us. I have just one set of thoughts to share with you. I'm not sure about you, but I felt the world has been a little confusing for the last few years. And, I'm pretty old, I'm 56, and I've lived in lots of countries, and I still feel confused. And I don't know if there are any easy answers, but I do know something, that the world needs us. The world needs people like you who have the knowledge, who have the context, who have the frameworks to navigate complex issues that occur at the intersection of education and policy and society. And I believe you came here as very accomplished individuals, as one of our speakers said, but now you have a little more. You have the legitimacy, because Georgetown's name resonates at so many levels, not just in Washington, D.C., but around the globe. You have the networks to tap into tens of thousands of alumni across more than 100 countries, who, if you reach out to them, will respond and will help you. And I heard from today, you have the confidence to know that you can tackle any challenge. I believe that you can and will make a difference. And this is a big cause to celebrate. And as you go forward, your degree and experience will open up doors and new possibilities that, seriously, even in today's wonderfully, positively emotional context, you may not imagine can happen. But my request is that wherever you go and whatever you do, remember where you're from. Who and what is Georgetown? Yes, we are Hoyas, even when our basketball team sometimes makes us want to forget. Georgetown is also a lovely campus, elegant buildings, scholarly faculty, caring staff, and wonderful students. Just look at this hall, years of tradition speaking to us. But who is Georgetown? Most of all, it's the alumni spread across DC and the globe. You are Georgetown. You are our strength. You give meaning to our name. More than anyone else here at the podium, you define us by your actions, by what you say, and what you do, and how you do it. And we know that you will do this well. And you will be both the best people in the world, and you'll be the best people for the world. And so we are already proud, and this is why we celebrate. So finally, we will miss you. I can see Professor Bees and the faculty are going to miss you a lot. So wherever life takes you, please remember, we want you to come home. Come home by continuing to work with our students and your fellow alumni. Come home for referrals, for contacts, for advice. Come home to share your expertise as teachers and as guest lecturers. Come home to meet your colleagues, old and new. Come home to enrich who we are together. Or come home just to say hello. But come home. We'll keep the light on. We'll be awake. We'll be waiting. For you are a Hoya. You are a part of Georgetown now and forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Almeida. Before I bid the graduates what I hope is only a temporary goodbye from the hilltop, I would like to recognize the parents, the spouses, the children, the relatives, and the friends of the graduates who provided them and the school with such valuable support in so many ways. You are as much a part of the Georgetown family as your sons and daughters, husbands and wives. We honor you and thank you. Graduates, please rise and turn and salute your friends and family. Thank you all for joining us today, and congratulations to our graduates. We wish you all well in your future endeavors, and remember that as members of the Georgetown alumni, you can always come back to the hilltop. Father Kemp will now offer the benediction.
We call down a blessing on one another. We take a moment and call down a blessing on those who have gathered with us this day, and especially on those that have prepared the food and drink we are about to share one with another. A blessing on them. May we never forget those who care for us. I'm the only guy standing between you and the food. I would like you all to rise just for a moment and give these graduates a special blessing in my own inimitable style. Hip, hip. Hooray. Hip, hip. Hooray. Hip, hip. Hooray.
How do you follow that? Will the guests please remain standing at their places until the faculty and graduates have recessed? You are all invited to join us for a reception in Fisher Colloquium at the Rafiq B. Hariri building. The ushers will direct you to the reception. The 2019 Executive Masters in Leadership Commencement exercises are now officially closed.